Hey guys, this is Pilleater, and I'm talking to Adventure Kid.
Yeah, what's up? What did you think about the election?
The election? Ah,
Oh, yeah.
it was either Hillary versus Trump, and Trump got it.
Yeah. Well, he didn't win the popular vote. I mean, she won 3 million more votes than him, but
Aren't you
the
consider
electoral.
yourself an anarchist though? Y-
Well, it's complicated. I consider myself more of a left wing market anarchist with some sympathies towards Asian-Aryanism. So it's kind of complex.
I'm the same way too. I mean, I was into anarchist theory too. I mean, there's this book I love called Crime Think, or a publishing company called Crime Think, and they used to release books, Days of War, Nights of Love, Invasion, and
Oh,
these.
yeah.
Have you ever read those
Yeah, I heard
before?
about it.
Yeah, they're great books on anarchy. So I don't know what your collection is about. I wouldn't know.
Well,
What, how did you get into
well,
anarchy?
well, I once had a book by Peter Lamborn Wilson. It was a book about Islam and anarchism. I sold it, to the library. So I don't know what happened to it. I think somebody else has it right now, but that
Ah,
thing's long gone. Yeah, and I got into Peter Lamborn Wilson because I was reading Countercurrents and James J. O'Mara.
yeah. Oh,
He
yeah.
kept talking.
Omera.
Yeah, how's he like? I always thought he was kind of like a cool guy who was into glam rock and everything.
Oh, yeah. No, he's very strange. I mean, I love his book, The Homo and the Negro, and some of the other stuff
He,
is great too. It's just that there's a lot to take in with him. He's an interesting figure, though.
yeah, he reminds me kind of William S. Burroughs a little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely on the cut and paste mystery science theater style, where it's you take one thing and then elaborate it postmodern interdimensional text style. It's really cool. I mean, I tried writing like that style, but I don't know. Everyone has to find their voice, but O'Mara does it in a very creative way. So you also read
Yeah, man.
Countercurrents, which is funny. That's funny too,
Yeah,
Countercurrents, because
yeah. I realize there's not a lot of people like me. I'm basically a black guy who sympathizes with the alt rights.
yes, yeah,
I'm like the
you know what? I can totally relate too, as a person that's. I can see, it's like, it's weird because it's like, if you're into something that's all white, it seems like it's whites only. When you start to realize that there's something more to it than this racial thing, and then it becomes quite relevant. I could totally relate on the position where you're coming from. I have a black friend, who was in my Asian studies class, and he himself considered himself a Shinto, and he was all hardcore on it, and he wished everybody was into this new Western Shinto ideal of the world. He's a nice friend,
you know
but what?
that sounds kind of like me. I was into Hinduism for a while, and then I went back to Christianity.
Yeah,
I was basically
what's that?
I said I was into Hinduism for a while. When I was a teenager in middle school. I mean, in high school.
Yeah, I mean,
I grew out of.
I was a Christian myself. I mean, I still am. I sometimes still go to church, but I haven't been going to church recently because all this activity that has been recently happening. I was in a Pentecostal church for a very long time.
Yeah. Anyway, you want to know the origin behind my nickname? You ever heard of Toshio Maeda? He's
Yeah,
this guy who makes like these
the blue
very
girl.
controversial comics. You
Yeah,
know, they're very controversial. Lots of sex, lots of violence. He writes in a genre called erotic grotesque, where you basically mix violence and sex together. And he's basically the reason why people who don't know a lot about anime associated with tentacles, because he's the guy who originated the whole tentacle thing in anime.
I know,
In
right?
fact,
It's like the
he
tentacle
has
porn
this one
thing.
funny yeah, he had this one funny interview where he said when he dies he wants Tentacle Master to be rolling on his grave
Yeah.
because he wants everybody to know he's the one who created tentacle porn in anime, which is funny to me.
And it's not like they're giving him any credit or anything. It's just a known, I think the Blue Girl was one of his I remember barely seeing that one, but yeah, that's funny if you consider him as the master of tentacle pornography. At least he should get some credit on that part. It's just I don't know how much of the what only if you're in the anime club or into anime you would understand that, or it's not like it's in should be associated by Western interest. I mean, there's a horror manga artist I love called Hideshi Hino. He made Zombie Baby.
Oh,
I love Hino.
I heard about. Yeah, I heard about him.
Yeah, Hino's work is amazing. I have a couple of just his raw work from Japan. I remember, and just I try to study up on my Japanese and just read one of those books. And there's just so much that's just not known in the Western world, and stuff like Pilleater, which is another like old school like weird yaoi. Even before it was considered a yaoi, it's these strange Japanese works of pop art from the 70s, 80s periods that are really like are charming, and definitely they need more exposure.
Yeah, I guess I kind of like Pilleater, but what I always found hilarious, at least from my point of view, is it's from a straight guy, is that you have a lot of yaoi fans who happen to be heterosexual, which I find hilarious. It's like you basically have these straight guys who like to watch anime about two gay guys.
Yeah, I mean, I knew two girls that were just in the yaoi just because it's, you stare upon the men, and supposedly like if men watch porn for women, then I guess women watch yaoi for men porn, but sometimes it could be homosexual, or it could be depending how you translate it.
Yeah, and I can kind of understand that. I'm a big fan of Revolutionary Girl Utina, and it's made very explicit in the show that Utina is in a relationship with Anthony, and it's kind of a lesbian relationship, and Utina is kind of bisexual.
I think I remember that. I just have pictures in my head of that one. That's from the 90s, isn't that one? Revolutionary Girl. I haven't seen an episode of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Have you heard of a guy on YouTube called Caption Christian, or it's hard to pronounce his name. Anyway, he's like,
not really.
He's this millennial guy who does like these essays and stuff. And there's this one essay of his that I really liked. It was about Adult Swim, where he was basically talking about how for our generation, Adult Swim was like MTV and everything, and how it introduced anime to the West, and about how when he was a kid, he was mesmerized by Cowboy Bebop and the Big O and Witch Hunter Robin and all that other stuff.
Yeah, Techi Muyo and Big O was on a Cartoon Network or Toonami at 5 o'clock when I came home from school. I can totally understand.
Yeah, and in the essay, in the video, he was basically talking. He started from the beginning. He was talking about the origins of Cartoon Network and Adult Swim and Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And, a whole bunch of other stuff. He was also talking about like Harvey Birdman and all the classics from, the original lineup of Adult Swim back in 2001.
I remember. I barely remember, but I do recall those, and especially in those periods of like I had a discussion with another friend. I always talk about those MTV cartoons like The Max and
I love the Max. That's one of my favorite cartoons.
Yeah,
along with Eon Flux. But some people they hate Eon Flux because it's incomprehensible. But that's the reason I love it so much.
No, it's very experimental, and it's by Peter Chung, which is kind of its own Korean American art that's very of uniqueness to it that you will not get from a solely and exclusively anime point of view. It certainly Eon Flux has a uniqueness to it. Yeah, there were other MTV. I'm thinking, there was a lot of hip urban night stuff white people like cartoons during that period. I'm thinking of Mission Hill and Mission Hill wasn't on MTV, but it was on UPN. Yeah,
but it was a pretty good show. Yeah, what I noticed about a lot of those 90s cartoons, Duckman, Mission Hill, and all those shows, is that you were basically focused on like these whites living in urban places, where they would
Clone High like and undergrads. I forgot. Yeah, same.
Oh yeah, undergrads, and I'm thinking of another show called
Downtown.
MTV Downtown.
Yeah,
where it was basically about these like group of teenagers from different races, basically hanging out, smoking weed, and reading comic books.
Yeah.
In downtown New York and going to high school and all that other stuff in the 90s.
Oh yeah, I mean it's this weird culture. It's strange because I remember that that scene going on for a bit, and then it disappeared. And then all of a sudden, here's a strange argument. You've mentioned Star versus the forces of evil before. I think what has happened in like 20 or 30 years, instead of portraying cartoons as people in the undergrad life or some joke, uh, instead people are now reverted to like teenagers or 16-year-old West Coast, half Japanese anime people about living a twee snowflake life. And it's this very strange fad that's going on right now through like Adventure Time, Bravest Warriors, everything by Pilleater Studios. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I see stuff like that, I kind of get reminisce, about the '90s, even though I was only like a baby at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I have certainly memories of the 90s, and it certainly was definitely a young period. I was born within that period. I'm very young myself, and I remember there was a lot going on in the 90s, especially with anime, this Japanese introduction to the West, and now this kind of post culture where we moved away from the American cartoon. Too much of the Japanese have came within 2000s, and now there's a strange synergy that's happening. And like I've said, I said this before on other shows. Fredelator Studios, like I guess My Life as a Teenage Robot, Bee and Puppy Cat, Star versus the Forces of Evil, these other Disney cartoons and such what, they have this very twee thing to it, this very West Coast twee thing to it. And I'm trying to pinpoint exactly why that has happened. I'm not so sure, but people who are obsessed with cartoons know what I'm talking about, though, you know?
Yeah, I get what you mean. And, I always kind of got this feeling too, because whenever I watched My Life as a Teenage Robot, I always got the feeling that, man, why would I feel when I'm watching this show? It feels like it's taking place in like downtown LA and like in the suburbs. When I'm watching My Life as a Teenage Robot, there was like in the background you could see that there was like palm trees and stuff, and like there was like these tech factories, like kind of Silicon Valley, everything.
It was more like Wyndham Lewis and future Bauhaus art together with this strange. If you get like old Walt Disney mixed with some of the rubber hose stuff, you kind of get.
From the Fleischer Brothers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking of this one art, Martin F. Edmond, who was this New Zealand artist who would do like these rubber hose characters and to put him in a lowbrow type of. It reminds me of that, and I think that style. It's interesting, but today it seems like everything now is Tumblr art compared to Teenage Robot, which was like 10 years ago, which is amazing. And how much what we consider art we listen to. I mean, I always put on cartoons when I'm doing homework or whatnot, and I often see on the TV on mute all this animated stuff going about. It's very of a strange thing. I mean, I think it's funny is that Two More Eggs is a cartoon show by the guys who did Homestar Runner, and now that's on Disney, and it's almost as if Homestar Runner, the internet culture, is now on the TV.
Yeah, have you heard of the Nostalgia Critic? Well, he did this video saying, "Are cartoons better now?" Where he was basically talking about how in the '90s, all these people who are making cartoons now were influenced by stuff like Batman and the Animaniacs and Ren and Stimpy, and how they were also influenced by anime, and how they kind of fused together. And now we've got this thing where there's like this surrealist humor mixed with anime. So
Yeah.
if you look at like Star versus the Forces of Evil, it seems like it has the humor of Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead mixed with, like Sailor Moon. So basically Sailor Moon and, Beavis and Butthead mixed together.
Yeah, it's like they get those stupid looking faces and they make them like these goofy, and they make it ironic and sarcastic. I mean, there's this book I love, Stuff White People Likes by Christian Lander, where Christian Lander pinpoints and describes the typical upper class liberal white person, or just white hip people in general, how sarcastic and irony is a tool used by whites to understand their humor or some kind of hip factor going on. And some like, well, that Ren and Stimpy thing where I remember there was a new episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm not talking about the old episodes. It was just called Freezing Faces, where it seems like the animators got too lazy and the animator director Vincent Waller decided to basically mix the faces up, and like you see SpongeBob and Patrick's face all deformed. It's not that funny. It's certainly artistic, but it's more like they've lost any textual script, and now they're thinking that the visual is more important than any content in the medium itself.
Yeah, and you were talking about, like, in one of your podcasts, there's something about how cartoons are getting happier. I kind of see that because shows like Ren and Stimpy and, Rocko's Modern Life and Invader Zim kind of had a dark sense of humor. Like,
Yes.
if you look at Invader Zim, there was just this grimness, and, like this griminess to it. Like, if you looked at the city, it looked like unkempt and abandoned, and the characters were dark, snarky, and they basically had no hope for the future, and they hated everybody. Like Zim's, Nib's sister, Invader Zim, like Nib, like one of the characters who hunted Invader Zim, his sister was like this narcissistic gothic brat who hated everybody and didn't really care if the world was going to be destroyed or not, and didn't really feel like it mattered that society was basically going down a shithole.
Invader Zim is certainly, you're right, there was a grimdark period, especially coming from Max and then Invader Zim and some other, I can't really recall. It certainly had some edge to it. And Jonan Vasquez, who did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, Squee, and I Feel Sick, it certainly, he had an edge. He was talking about a goth subculture. However, it's funny is that Vasquez himself, he kind of grew out of that goth culture. He's always was a social justice warrior. And then all of a sudden, Disney has Ryan Cunningham, ninth grade ninja, and they get the art direction of Vasquez. It seems to me all Jonan Vasquez ever want was a good life and not like this self-loathing social justice warrior life. I mean, certainly Johnny has some great aesthetics to it. However, deeply, I do think Vasquez is a flawed character, and he seems to get easily offended by, like, he has his own trigger warnings, right? I tried to get him on a podcast with Robert Stark, and hopefully he'll get back to it. I hope he didn't look at our stuff and call us racist, which is pretty pathetic. I just hope he doesn't see that.
Yeah, I'm surprised you guys got John R. Dilworth to be on your podcast, because he always seemed kind of like a moderate liberal to me. Like, he would probably like Hillary Clinton or something.
No, I think Dilworth is one of there's a lot to him. I really can't wrap around what Dilworth exactly is, and I think Dilworth is a unique character. I mean, thinking about which, I love his there was Angry Carabet, which was kind of his like goth style cartoon he had. Yeah, I love John R. Dilworth, and it's great that he shows like a mature character himself. But it seems to me that Jonan, I don't know. I hope I can get his attention. I'll try again sending him an email. But it's interesting you point that out about that whole goth phase too.
Yeah. Anyway, like I was going to mention about Toshio Maeda, is that what I like about him is that his attitude is refreshing, and he truly doesn't give a fuck about what people think about him. Like, for example, when somebody asked him, do feminists are offended by his work, he said, yeah, probably, but I really don't care if they are or not. I just love drawing hot chicks and watching them get fucked.
Yeah, it's like I think I saw like a really cheesy documentary about the guy who made the Dead or Alive video game series, and he said the same thing. He said he wanted to see a fighting game with just big tit girls fighting each other, which I think was this. I think it was a G4 documentary. But yeah, the reason why I like Padaleo, Mina Maya, is a strange character who's a cross dresser, possibly a bisexual. It just the person reflects the art itself, and there's so much of that in Japan that's totally that needs to be uncovered.
Yeah, so like I was saying, you really need to watch like Captain Christian's video essays. They're really illuminating. Like, he also did like another video essay on like Batman the Animated Series and the influence it had on the animation industry in the 90s and beyond.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to find his actually YouTube channel. It's Captain Christian.
Yeah. It's spelled with a K,
Oh, it's spelled with a K. Okay, Captain Chris. Okay, I see it. Christian. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Adult Swim one is the best one I swear. It's like, it's so illuminating. I like it where he just talks about the influence Adult Swim had on the animation industry and the experimental stuff like, Renegade Angel and stuff like that, and how crazy and bizarre that was.
Yeah, I got it on the another window, and I subscribe to it. I mean, I have to watch some of his videos on another. I see it. Spawn, Godzilla, Alien, Watchmen. That's It's funny because I did a documentary on right now I did it on two, Star and Kazetu Ke no Uta, and I kind of just did them on my own experimental time recently. I'll try to push out more documentaries when I have a time.
Yeah, he's really good. Like he did like one documentary for Christmas where he basically talked about Dr. Seuss and everything and the influence that Dr. Seuss had on children's stories and how he proved that you didn't have to dumb it down just to talk to kids.
Well, it seems to be he's only been around actually for about 9 months actually, earlier this year, and he's been getting
his channel is incredibly. His channel is incredibly new. Like I said, he's a millennial like us. I think he was born in like the late 90s.
Oh yeah, that is very interesting. I mean, right now for cultural commentary, I'll be honest with you. I just been watching a lot of Prince of Queens videos, and sometime I'll watch.
You ever heard of Bennett the Sage?
Bennett the Sage. I think I came across some of his videos actually.
Yeah, he basically reviews like old school anime, basically.
I think I've seen
another. He did one review of Angel.
I think I've seen
one review of Angel Cop. It was hilarious.
I think I came across one which was something Glass, and that was a bunch of anime reviews, and somebody shared it on my Twitter, and I looked at it. I was like, it's interesting, but I didn't really yeah, there's a lot to be uncovered. There's this whole Twitter scene called Anime Right, and they've been following me a lot on Twitter, and they're basically a scene on who all voted for Donald Trump, and they all sign a sympathize with me, and they all want the whole alt-right to like anime, which is kind of funny. I'm still trying to learn the actual interest of the anime right, though they disagree with my opinion on Asian-Aryanism, though I think it's a mix between shock art and just people who like anime, and they're trying to quote-unquote red pill them into alt-right stuff. I think it is funny, but I think they need to have more direction and philosophical outcome on it. I don't know. It's interesting though, the anime right.
Yeah, and what I like about you is that your political influences seem to be diverse. Like I looked up your subscriptions, and you're subscribed to both Joe Rogan, who's a leftist, and I think Big Man Tyrone, who's basically has to be like who's a pretty right wing guy.
Yeah, my Big Man Tyrone video, that's been getting me a lot of hits recently, and like the thing is, I've also had an interview with Anubis Hotep, who has an interesting religion with the Book of Mi'at, which is I'm still trying to wrap my head around, and I've been getting to read that, and something to do with the post-holy tablets works. I find that stuff really interesting. I've actually made a recent video. There's this guy I interviewed for a recent podcast named Dan DiArgenio. I know him in real life, and I thought I'd put him on the podcast. Within the last 24 hours, he's all like, everyone on the community, this guy I know is a red pill, racist, whatever, sexist, which is totally not true. He can't even get any sex. He didn't even read the definition of Asian-Aryanism. And then he tried to shame me, so I did I made a recent video where I pretend I'm Dr. Robotnik, Pingus, and I read his hate mail and made a video about it. I mean, no offense to Dan. I think he's a cool kid, cool guy. It's just that he completely misunderstands me, and my views have nothing to do with his, and just because you're on a podcast with me doesn't mean I'm going to rub off my magic onto you, so...
Yeah, and I sympathize with you. I mean, even though I'm more into Hispanic women, I like Asian girls too. And I'm kind of split between them because the reason I like Hispanic women more is because they're more voluptuous and curvaceous. You know, like I used to tell this joke where I said that you know, Hispanic girls had the bodies of black women, but they had the smooth hair of white women, which I thought was hilarious.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, certainly Hispanic women are actually certainly a lot chased out, hugely attractive and chased after women from all spectrums of. I can totally understand. I'll be honest, and when I was in, I think I was a freshman, there was a Hispanic girl that I liked, and we actually went out for a couple of dates for a bit, and we had Skype sex. I don't know if you were to call it that, but
Yeah, Skype sex. I don't even know what that is.
It's just going up in front of Skype and showing your parts. I don't know. It's silly stuff, but that was when I was younger.
Dude, why did you do something? That's just weird. That's funny. That's funny.
It's funny, yeah, but the thing is, it's like, I can totally understand, but I'll be honest with you. I mean, I always say this. My relationship, I've had like, I mean, through all the white girls I've known, especially 3 or 4 white girls that I try to go out on dates with were all completely horrible, but at the same time, I was in denial of it. Because at that same time, every authentic relationship I had were with Asian girls, particularly Chinese Americans. And I completely was in denial of that fact until just recently, where I realized that I had more success with Asian women than sadly my own. And you know, I hardly, I'll be on, you know, these were really the only 2 groups of people that I've really like I've understand that it's a thing, right? I'm not the only one that has had this same feeling, and I think other white men know the same feeling where I'm going through. And there are a lot of geeky white men that they could be video game nerds, or people who go to punk rock shows, or they're the part of this stuff white people like universe. The thing though is it's happening right now, and there's more HAPA kids, half white Asian kids, being produced at the current moment because of the multicultural and diverse paradigm. And it's kind of, this is interesting. You find this fascinating because I have to be honest. It's just most white people want to show their white racial consciousness, but they play these strange liberal games where they don't want to be honest, where they want to pretend everything's universal and everything's like this facade or something. And so they'll do crazy things like they'll get an Asian wife, they'll have like Asian, half white Asian children, say this has nothing to do with race. But I would have loved her if she was black or Hispanic. Or the truth is no, I think they actually discriminated and chose an Asian wife. And so you know where I'm coming from, where it's like it's really a dishonest conversation about race. And I think Asian-Aryanism is my troll term to really say, hey, look, if white nationalism loses against white genocide, you know, Asian-Aryanism is the plan B, where you're going to have to be red-pilled like Asian American or white Asian, not really understand what's going on.
Yeah, you know, I was watching like a side build of a podcast one time, and you know, I think they made a great point about politics. You know, where they were talking about economic politics, and they were basically talking about how, you know, they feel it's silly that the alt-right still has like these libertarian, like these crazy corporate libertarian views on economics. And one guy, he said that, I forgot his name, but I might have to, you know, email that guy one day, because he made a great point. He said that there can be like some moderation or something like that. He was like, I mean, there has to be something between a communist Soviet state and like a Judge Dredd style corporate capitalism, you know, where the corporations basically control everything. And I think he was right, because I mean, we have to find some economic system that's not like 1984, or that's not like RoboCop, where the corporations control everything. I mean, we got to find like a middle ground in the alt-right and not go crazy.
You know, it's funny that the terms are now alt-right, or white nationalism. I've been saying this recently that, you know, I'm proud to be an alt-right candidate, even though it's like I do understand anyone who comes from alt right and alt white nationalists, is simply because we're in a generation right now of soft white nationalism or soft alt right nature, and that's why you have the alt light happening right now. And I'm going to be honest, I voted for Trump, so most white people will shiver and cringe and say, "Oh, they vote for Hillary because they don't want to lose their job or something." But the thing is that we're definitely in an age that's post multicultural and diverse, and meaning that it's becoming more ethno-state wise or more national or racially aware wise, and it seems to be a splitting between liberal classes and people making money and all this like political stuff on the internet, which couldn't have happened 10 years ago, is now happening, and we're really becoming the subgenre of political stuff on the internet. And I think it's definitely going somewhere with people's motivations.
Yeah, and I watched like one of your documentaries, where you were talking about the sexuality and star verses, and I thought it was pretty interesting because I never looked at it like that. But that being said, I always kind of got a vibe like there was like this Utina type vibe from Star Versus.
Yeah.
Which isn't surprising that because Star Versus was inspired by revolutionary girl Utina, and even the creator admits that she was inspired by the TV show.
Yeah, I should get Darren, maybe contact Darren and see if he wants to do a podcast. But it's
I doubt it. I mean,
I don't know.
She's a very Darren Nipsey. I mean, she's like the super SJW. I mean,
I thought it was
like
a he.
The type of person that if you talk to her, she would probably support like either Bernie Sanders or Jill Stein. She just seems like that type of person to me.
Hey, that's what stuff white people like. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a he. But whatchamacallit? Yeah, the reason why I pointed out all this sexual stuff is just it's a perfect example of Asian-Aryanism, because I was really watching the show, and like especially on the West Coast, you see nothing but like white male, Asian female, or even rare cases Asian male, white female, and you see all their offsprings. I was just making these accusations in Star and just saying, hey, look, I'm pretty sure she's Asian, that girl's Asian, he looks kind of Asian, and basically California is the little Asian Aryan sexual state. I mean, if you think of Star, it's like telling young kids that like you should be open about sexuality at such a young age. I mean, we had like Ren and Stimpy and Doug and like SpongeBob. They weren't as sexual as like A-Cup Star and her like sexy girlfriends. Everybody, there's some weird vibe.
I don't know about Ren and Stimpy. I mean, there was kind of this whole homosexual vibe between those two.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And like the women were hot in that when John Kay wanted to draw hot women in Ren and Stimpy. Like he had this night.
Batman in the animated series could get sexual sometimes. Look at Harley Quinn; she was really hot.
Oh yeah, like the Paul Dini, Bruce Timm. Definitely aesthetic has some of those classic Batman has certainly I don't want to say rabbit alt left space age aesthetic to it. I mean, but this is what I'm seeing in cartoons. It's white people have basically, because they're not allowed to have white racial conscious, it's supposedly okay to have Asian conscious or Japanese conscious, but they're not Japanese. And so what they do is they'll go to extreme lengths to like marry Asian or to say that they are the anime character. If you go to any video game convention, any anime convention, it's white people cosplaying as Japanese characters, Japanese fictional characters. They're not cosplaying as Plato or Aristotle or some European Harry Potter thing. No, it's Asian, and that's becoming very powerful within this white class of disenfranchised people, and it certainly has more subversive power in it.
Oh yeah, I like this podcast.
What?
Huh?
What's that?
I said I like this podcast, this conversation we're having.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You consider yourself left-wing anarchist. I think today is so hard to consider yourself left-wing because at the current moment, if you're left-wing, you probably support the French Revolution, communism, Frankfurt School, Jacobin Mag, Democracy Now!, Noam Chomsky. Yeah, there's certainly influences in the air, and there's certainly an established left-wing. However, there's websites like altleft.com, right? But
You know, I'm a big fan of Red, but I actually like his work. I also like Robert Lindsay a lot too. He's a
yeah,
cool guy. I don't know what he's like in person.
yeah, they're all. That's what I'm saying. There's this whole alt left going on, and I would consider myself alt left simply because, look, if the alt right is to win, then obviously it's the both sides. There's one side it'll win, but I feel as though that left and right wing is a terminology in the Western world, which is kind of not a yin yang balance, but certainly it's a way of kind of a way of life or something. I mean, certainly I think definitions will change, and maybe I'll take that back. Maybe it is a yin yang thing. I'm not so sure. So, I mean, Julius Evola said the same thing about that, but um, I know what you're saying. I feel as though that the left, certainly it's becoming more disgraceful to be consider yourself left if you want to associate with degeneracy or some kind of low. I feel as though that there needs to be a left wing that is completely healthy and for good things. We have to reconsider what is left.
Yeah, you know, um, somebody like Bill Kaufman, I would consider to be an example of a guy who's a pretty good leftist. Dave Rubin is another guy, and Sargon of Akkad, although some people would probably dispute with me, but Sargon of Akkad is a pretty good leftist too.
Yeah, if I know what you're saying. I mean, I was watching actually some Sargon videos, and some people have dislike him, but I can see where there are points which you can be honestly left wing. Like one conversation I was having with a friend is equality left wing, right? I mean, equality is equality. Why should equality be exclusively for left wing? Couldn't equality fit in with a right wing system? And so you have to say, is egalitarianism, is that something to strive for as a left, or is it the potential to strive what you want to do? And so could you hastily make an anti-equality left wing?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to think about because Jonathan Bowden once said that the left is a whole school of trying to make egalitarianism, equality, the main source of life, while he would say inegalitarianism is the right wing and it's everything is inequality and that things are just animalistic and primitive. And so,
Well, I mean, when you say a left that's about inequality, the only two examples that really pop out in my head are Lyndon LaRouche and the Futurists.
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's interesting. If you think about it, if you get really crafty with the terms, I mean, I feel as though that maybe the left should be about like friends, family, freedom, as in you have your friends, you have a family, which is the basis of any civilization. You have your freedom and certain liberties to do what you want, but so as long as it doesn't hurt any greater goods and other people's friends, family, freedoms. I feel as though that today's left has this dead obsession of egalitarianism and this obsession with like identity politics, and kind of it's just sick in itself, and you can't have a healthy society that's far left or left. It just doesn't. I don't know. There's some people don't want to look at the terror of it because it's basically you take happy pills too much and you want to be blissfully utopian happy, and I think all these liberals have fell for it.
Yeah, you got the point. And, when when I look at history documentaries and stuff about politics in America, before like '68 and the Southern Strategy, things just seem so more. People seemed like they agreed with each other a lot more. I don't know if you heard about the New Deal coalition, which lasted from like 1933 to like '68, about 35 years. And in my opinion, that's like the golden age of American politics, because you had everybody, Democrats and Republicans, basically saying, yeah, you shouldn't let poor people die in the streets. Although if you're a Republican today to say, poor people shouldn't die in the streets and I support universal health care, your career would pretty much be ruined. You would never work in politics ever as a Republican.
Yeah, it's still like that today, especially with political beliefs. I mean, I haven't had any. I mean, I don't know. So as long as you don't say you associate with that, but at the same time, we're coming to a point where we're being associated with what we say. And it's funny because I think a lot of this has a lot to do with just being a free artist, you know? Even if you're trying to do something that might seem destructive. And I really don't think most of the things I'm doing is destructive. In fact, I think my whole Asian Aryan thing is really quite, it's almost like a troll ideology in some way because neither the far right or the far left like it, not even normies and some HAPA people don't like it. But if you step back, think about it for a bit, and realize that this is something to consider, maybe you would totally agree what I'm trying to say. And it's funny. I don't know how to put it. We certainly live in times where you choose a side, definitely.
Yeah, and my politics. Let me explain it more in detail. I'm a left-wing market anarchist. If you want to know what that means, just read Tiffany Carson's The Ethics of Labor Struggle. I'm not like those recent assholes who defend the oil companies or basically get down underneath to suck Sheldon Adelson's dick. No, I believe in labor unions and all that other stuff. I don't want to gut the labor unions or nothing like that. And I support, and I'm against big government, and I'm against mainstream unions like the AFL-CIO that try to collaborate with the government. I believe that the best way is to do what the IWW does, is to support the workers and not the bosses who are in charge of the unions, and to basically do like these wildcat strikes, against like these big corporations to get more representation for the workers.
Are you a member of the Industrial Workers of the World?
No, I'm not, but I do support their cause, though.
It's funny. There's a Jimmy John's around here, and they're associated with the Industrial Workers of the World, and I'll often see them, and I think it's funny because I always think people get intimidated going in that Jimmy John's food sandwich market because the workers of the world are always there, or something really funny.
So what's your personal politics? Well, you said you're off left, but who inspired you? Because a lot of people inspired me. Like I already said, that I read a lot.
That's an interesting question because, I mean, if I say I'm one thing, then it's like, all right, shots fired. I don't want to talk to you. So I'm very specific of what I like and what I went through a very long when I was earlier on, I always was interested in, we were just talking about cartoons and art. I always was interested in art. I always consider myself an artist. And like I said, I think when I was maybe 14 or 15, I had a Crime Thinks Invasion book, this little narrative how to steal things. I loved the whole anarchist theory, the West Coast anarchist theory, and got into that really early on. It was later eventually that I would discover these strange things on the internet, like asexualism, the strange Russian cult that wants to get rid of sexuality, fringe stuff like the Church of Euthanasia by Chris Korda, and then all of a sudden getting wrapped up in the whole avant-garde punk scene and realizing that people can be artistic. I started to notice that there was this shock art thing, like with bands like White House, where you would show pedophilia and Nazism just to get an emotion out of people. My ideology was always being an artist. And then maybe when I was 17, I think that's when I discovered countercurrents and realizing that there was this different way of thinking about the right. And maybe there were people they have integrity. It's a very long thing too. I mean, I'm not going to lie too. I'm also friends with some people in the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, and they're basically like Christians. I mean, a few years ago when I went to college, the place where I felt at home was basically the Christian club. Well, I don't know what kind of the Pentecostals, and all this mix is going on at once. Where I felt like, hey, everyone has this say. It's just that they're so divided because you disagree on so little things. And I feel like we are definitely people are role playing in these terms like identities. However, I think people do have a similar cause in mind. And we definitely live in this strange generation where we can make up stuff on the internet. And so I went to school for Asian studies. And so, to really accumulate what have I learned just recently graduating from college, I think Asian-Aryanism is something I'm experimenting with and could best describe what I've been through the past 7, 8 years of my life, and I just want to touch out and reach to other people who know what I've been through.
Yeah, man, I can understand it. I started to read Countercurrents. I think I was like 16, and I was being homeschooled. I was going through a lot of trouble at the time. And then from there, the first book I ordered from Countercurrents was like Artists of the Right. And, I was just like inspired. Carrie Bolton,
Yeah, Carrie Bolton is great. I have that
man,
same book too.
There was a lot of people on Countercurrents that inspired me. Carrie Bolton, James J. O'Mara, Greg Johnson.
Have you liked Mark Dial? Mark Dial's really
Mark
interesting.
Dial?
Yeah.
Well, Mark Dial, he's okay, but he's not my favorite writer on Countercurrents.
There's another guy, JJ Polinsky. He kind of writes in the street style. I think I'm saying his last name right. I think I might have met him.
I also started to read other stuff like Talkie Magazine and the American Conservative. So I started to read, like Bill Kaufman, Rod Dreher, Pat Buchanan, Gavin McInnes,
Jim Goad.
I started to read like Talkie Magazine. I started to read Gavin McInnes, David Cole. Even though David Cole, he's kind of like a Jewish neoconservative, he still has like these thoughts that he's kind of red-pilled. Even though he's a Jewish neoconservative, he still has like these views that are beyond neoconservatism. Like he says things like, about, crime and statistics and stuff like that you can tell that he's probably read like some alt-right works. I also like Jim Goad, and Jim Goad was pretty good. I also like Keith Preston, and
yeah, they're all great guys.
Those were a lot of guys who influenced me.
I found a Cole actually through I was a huge Holocaust denial fan myself, and I've seen most Holocaust denial videos and have known about most of those historians. And from places like Cadeau, Bradley Smith's, and seeing David Cole's old documentary, I was super surprised for him to make a comeback on Talkie Mag, and now he's getting this newfound success, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I heard his book, Republican Hollywood Animal, is pretty funny.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. I mean, I remember when it came out, and I listened to him on The Stark Truth, and I was like, that's really cool. But then I read the Talkie Mags, and I never had the chance to get the book, actually.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I also was inspired by, like, Robert Lindsay and Rabbit.
Yeah.
I already mentioned Keith Preston. Keith Preston's, website, Attack the System, was pretty great. Because Keith Preston, he's an anarchist.
Yep.
He leans kind of left, but at the same time, he's not your typical Noam Chomsky type anarchist. Like, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Noam Chomsky endorsed Hillary Clinton, even though he's supposed to be an anarchist. While Keith Preston, he was like 100% the real deal. Instead, he wasn't really interested in any candidate. And in fact, he admitted that he didn't really vote in the election. He admitted that if he had voted, he probably would have gone for Jill Stein. So that's what I liked about, Keith Preston, is that, he's
authentic. Very
not going to
authentic.
bullshit you on anything.
Exactly. It's super authentic. I'm the same way, too. I mean, when I first started to vote, it was a couple of years ago, it was either Obama and Romney, but I didn't like either two, so I vote Gary Johnson. And for this election, I was like, well, it's obviously case it's going to be Donald Trump simply because of many reasons. But it shows you that if you're authentic to your vote, you stick by it. You don't go and cower down and vote Hillary, even though you consider yourself an anarchist. There's a lot of things that determines people's political interests, and people always have to be authentic about that. I mean, that's very interesting to consider. It's just hard to do. But are you a blogger, or do you have a Twitter, or none of that? You're just kind of a lurker?
Yeah, I don't really have a Twitter. I have a YouTube channel, and
yeah,
it's really all I got.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you should go out and start writing on Blogspot, or like doing a Twitter and just getting your ideals out there and tell other people about them.
Yeah. So, um, you say you're an artist. What kind of art do you like? Because me, I like surrealism, Dadaism,
Um,
and I like anime. I like
um,
noir.
I, I said this on another podcast. I love comic books, and I was recently getting into the art of Andrian Tomine. He recently did a New Yorker cover with this black male, Asian female on the front cover with love locks. I was fascinated by that, and I decided to get more into his art and see what kind of person he really is, and trying to, I don't want to say the word deconstruct his nature of how big of an Asian Aryan he is and if he really lives up to his whole black male Asian female thing. I mean, it's cute that he wants he wants to show a thing like that. Once again, there needs to be an institution for that, and it's not like something I would go ahead and advocate Afro Asian-Aryanism because I'm only focused on one thing right now. So, but yeah,
Yeah, but let me just preface that by saying that sometimes I think Asians and blacks can create some pretty unique looking kids.
yeah.
Like some pretty cute kids. I mean, look at Naomi Campbell. She's like what, half Chinese and half Jamaican. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, you gotta admit, she's pretty fucking hot.
I had an interview with Kira. Kira is I know Kira in person. She's a Jamaican and Chinese, and I know her in person. I interviewed on my YouTube channel. Kira, you should check that one out. And I have another friend who's also Jamaican and Chinese. It's a very common thing if you go in certain South Asian, East Asian places. It's just they definitely have a voice. It's just that there hasn't been really an institution or blog spot or talking about that. And I feel as though I don't want to talk for them simply because I'm not that. I'm not. I come from a European background. White background. So I really can't speak for you. But I would like something to happen on that, right? There seems to be more
Yeah,
love.
I wanna.
Yeah.
Oh, I would like to talk about something. You ever heard the TV show Shameless? Well, the creator was basically talking about how when he first pitched the show to American producers, which was about a poor urban white family who lived in the ghetto, they tried to get the show to be like in the South or be in a trailer park. And, the creator, he said he wanted the show to be realistic and show that, yes, there are some urban white people, and not every white person is rich and lives in the suburbs and has like 2 cars and a white picket fence and a pet dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Redneck
there's lots of
Manifesto by
white.
Jim Goad. That's a very interesting read. It reminds me of that.
Yeah, like for example, I watched like this documentary Gangland, which was basically talking about like gangs in Detroit, and it was basically this one guy, and he came off as real rough and tumble, and he was basically this white guy who grew up in the ghetto, and you could tell by the way he spoke that he was real urban, and that being around black people and stuff kind of had an influence on him.
Oh yeah.
Not only that, but he joined the black gang and everything. And after getting out of the black gang, he joined a motorcycle gang and everything, where he sold drugs and everything. And when I was watching the documentary, I was like, man, the white people in Detroit must be really, really gangster or tough or something.
Eminem. If you want to, have you seen the debate with AR the Rugman on the Gavin McInnes show with Jared Taylor? Do you remember that one? It was
No, but I heard about it. I heard it was funny though.
Here's what happened. I thought this was interesting. The Rugman accused Jared, saying, "You white and Asian people are the master racist people. And you are against black and I think he used Hispanic. Like he said, black and Hispanic were the oppressed, bad people, and the white and Asians are the new master racists. It's no longer white people anymore. I think it's funny. Rugman is accusing both whites and Asians working together and oppressing everyone. I'm like, that's really funny. That sounds a lot like Asian-Aryanism.
Yeah, that is funny.
And I think I want to further write about that, but once again, it's this nature that somehow high IQ people or people who have that created these big civilizations need to repent and somehow owe losers or some kind of class below it some kind of thing. And it's like, it's annoying because it's not it's like it's no longer just like one race. It's like I think this white Asian thing is really happening, and once again this Asian Aryan thing like if whites continue to not think of themselves as white people, they will just in the multicultural game they will discriminate and choose Asian wives. And then they will have white Asian kids, and then they will be considered the new white people. I'm being facetious here. And then they're going to take a blame, and whatever that's called, call it the new white people or not, I mean, they are going to take some responsibility, both Asian and white civilization.
Yeah, and I think that we're probably winning. I mean, after all, Donald Trump won. The fact that you're able to get people who are mainstream on the Robert Stark show is amazing in of itself. I mean, you got the guy from Zuzu to be on your program.
Yeah, we got Jamie. Though I think Jamie got scared when we talked about Peter Sotos. I'm a huge fan of Peter Sotos, but if you know,
Sotos?
Yeah, he writes.
I heard about Peter Sotos.
Nine Banded
Books. He was like an author / filmmaker.
He makes a lot of child porn avant-garde literature. He does it for shock art. He's like Jim Goad. He does like this whole White House, in the White House, he does shock art, but Jamie's a huge fan. And so what happened was, hey, Jamie, when did you meet Peter? Would you rat your friend out? And I think that was happening. And so me and Robert have been trying to get Peter Sotos on the show. And I think who wants to have a guy that's super controversial on a already somewhat, and so I think Jamie might have chickened out on the last 30 minutes. What he says, he authentically says his cat was hurt or something, though I don't know if that's true. Maybe we were talking too much on Sotos and it led a different direction, but I think the conversation is good until he brought up Sotos. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have him back on when he has a new album out. But yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite music? Because I found out that just like me, you seem to have a love for 80s new wave and vaporwave and Japanese anime music, which I love. For example, my favorite anime theme song from the 80s is like the first City Hunter theme song, which I like, man. That's a good theme song, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, if you check out my YouTube playlist on my channel, I have a bunch of kooky names. Whenever I go on YouTube, I'll either press like and put them on my playlist, and it'll show up on my Twitter feed. I'll have playlist stuff. Let's see the names. I'll have liked videos, honorable Asian Aryan, dance record showdown, funny stuff, twee cuddle party. I'll just have silly stuff where I'll put in tunes I like and put on my YouTube. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
That was funny, man.
There's a lot of stuff that I will find and put on YouTube.
Like, for example, like, I like a lot of weird music. Like, for example, I'm the type of guy who can listen to some old soul records like Motown from the 60s and the 70s, then switch to listening to The Birthday Party or Frank Zappa or Marilyn Manson, or switch to listening to Little B or Migos or some old school gangster rap like from the 90s.
I'm the same way, too.
Listening to like some,
I've been listening to a lot of
jazz or some blues.
I love
on some rare occasions, I might even listen to some gospel.
Yeah,
but mostly these days, I basically just listen to avant-garde music or some gangster rap.
Yeah. I've been into Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy has been doing some silly stuff recently with Chris Brown, and I like the way he makes music and the way he's that kind of mentality is interesting. He has this one song, "Skinny Niggas Running Shit," and I don't know if it's gay or not, but it seems to be it's a very attractive song, a very agitating song, and a very aesthetic. It's funny. It's an interesting song by Soulja Boy. But I read this book one time. It was called Songs in the Key of Z by Erwin Chusett, and it was talking about outsider music. I consider people like Little B and Moondog,
Ice JJ Fish to be outsider music. Ice JJ Fish is like, I can't tell if it's a joke or if he actually thinks it sounds good when he sings. And the same goes for Little B. I don't know if Little B is just joking with people or if he actually thinks his shitty rhymes are actually good.
It's like Wesley Willis too. Wesley Willis, I remember. That's like real famous Wesley Willis. And like Moondog. those are like when I think of outsider music, I think of these kind of strange. I know what you're talking about. The outsider music where it's what was that the Space Lady? I used to really enjoy the Space Lady. That's very
Oh yeah, another outsider music group I enjoy is the Residents. It's like their music is so weird and scary and crazy. It's like, man, are these people really this weird, or are they just putting on the show? The Residents. And add to the fact that not that many people know that much about the Residents, and that they have secret identities.
That's like Green Jello, or like, yeah, I think Liberal Revolution is a huge fan of the Residents. Actually, we had him on the show recently. Liberal Revolution said the Residents. I think there was a show they were playing, and then all of a sudden a bulldozer comes and knocks everyone in, or something strange. But yeah, some of those. I mean, thinking of costume bands, yeah. I mean, I've been really interested into. I've been trying to make Asian-Aryan bands. I don't mean to tick them off, but I feel as though there's this also aesthetic where people are pretending they're anime characters or having some strange energy synthesis. My one friend Alex Sue told me about Kyo Bonita, and it's like obviously, all right, this is some anime J-pop band with an English twist, or I love Mitski. Mitski's like this indie rocker, Japanese, whatever. Some of it is real nice, some of it's cool, but it's definitely like Asian American, Asian, or whites trying to be Asian kind of power thing, right? That's why I like Atari Teenage Riot, because it's like this digital hardcore music, right? And then you have the Japanese German Nick Endo in there, and it's like half sexual, half it becomes performance art. It's really interesting.
Yeah, what do you think about Grimes? Because I think she gives off kind of an Asian-Aryan vibe whenever I hear her music.
It's funny. I was in Urban Outfitters the other day, and I think I saw the Grimes thing, and I know, yeah. I definitely feel it. Harlan Venison, we were talking about whether Elliot Rogers is Asian-Aryan. I'm not the sole guy that's like the referee that says thumbs up, thumbs down. There are so many things you can consider Asian-Aryan that I don't know of, and I have yet to. It probably fills all the definitions too, just looking at Grimes. I don't listen to the music that much, but while I'm getting the feel from it, it definitely has like a certain power. Definitely. I do see it.
Oh yeah, another Japanese artist who I admire and whose art is also kind of dark. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Suhiro Maruo. He did something called Arashi Street Circus, and his work it's also violent and sexual like Toshio Maida's, and he also has a dark sense of humor. And his work also seems politically incorrect because he did like a couple of paintings / drawings that were basically idolizing like Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan,
Arashi,
like Imperial Japanese nurses and Imperial Japanese soldiers with like a red flag with like a white flag, killing like American soldiers.
It's called Arashi Street Circus.
Like,
what's the band called?
Yeah, what I seem to get from Japan is that unlike Germany, they never underwent denazification. Like Angel Cop, for example, the original Angel Cop, the original Japanese Angel Cop was basically this anime that basically advocated for fascism.
Yeah.
And that basically had a plot where the Jews were involved in the financial crisis in Japan. And it's like, wow. It's like, you could not do that in another country and get away with that type of stuff. It's like Japan, they have zero, they give zero fucks what the world thinks about them. They don't give a fuck about that people get mad at them when they idolize Imperial Japan. The Germany, they're a bunch of cucks. If somebody in Germany tried to give a Nazi salute, they'd be thrown in jail. But in Japan, if you give an Imperial Japanese salute and say you love the Emperor and all that stuff, and you idolize, the Imperial Japanese Navy, they'll consider you like a patriot. You might even become a politician and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all those are attracting reasons why people love Japan. There's like, even though there are bombs thrown onto them and white Americans have control over economically there, and they use Tokyo as some liberal output, they're not assimilating. It's white people's favorite non-white place in the world, and still they're not. You expect some kind of Asian-Aryanism would happen in Tokyo when really it's happening in California, simply as because that's where the proximity of Western culture can flourish. The Japanese in their government are so good at like weeding out people who go against their norms, right? And so, yeah, I think that's a very special thing. Japan has integrity. I am all for avocation of any race preserving their nature, Japan and white Americans, and they should do that. I just do not like this whole like anti-racial thing where you have to feel bad about being yourself. And I think the best races know that, and they can overcome that and still be preservationists. Though I am concerned that the Japanese men haven't been having sex with their Japanese women lately, and I think a lot of the Japanese women have been going for successful white men. So that's a very concerning thing.
Oh yeah, what do you think about Rodrigo Duterte in the Philippines and Vladimir Putin in like Russia? Because I see a lot of people on the alt-right embrace those two guys.
Roddy is up and coming because he's going to shoot all the drug dealers, and he's gonna take down everyone who doesn't follow the rules, and he's gonna make the Philippines more clean. I'm all for that. And,
yeah, he gives up a Lee Kuan Yew vibe to me. You know Lee Kuan Yew, who is like the guy who was the president of Singapore for like 30 years,
yeah.
who basically killed all the drug dealers in Singapore and basically had people caned.
Yeah, I love the Philippines. I love. I dated this one Filipino girl. They're really interesting. The Philippine people, and they're certainly very accepting towards. Definitely, I would consider themselves an Asian people. And the thing is, the Philippines, they're super conservative people, and they will defend what they don't care about. This whole international globalist thing happen, and I think it's great that the people can relate to. Roddy, what he's doing, and as for Putin, that's a Russian. I am not. Like the thing is, I'm not much of a Russian scholar, so I really can't say what happens in Russia. And I know like American-Russian relations is so intense. It's one of those things where it's like I've never really understood like who's right on the. I do understand, however, is nationalism versus globalism, right? That's so classic to understand, and they're definitely. I do believe, however, there is a certain Russian bias, certainly because Russia is the baby boomers have always seen Russians as like Soviet communists or something like that, and now it's completely opposite, and they're like the nationalist conservatives, and they hate everything globalized multiculti America stands for. It's sad because it's two white people, some kind of European people fighting each other, and I wish maybe they could have peace, but it doesn't. It seems like there's always tension between the two because they're so chaotic in their nature.
Who is your favorite comedian? Mine is David Chappelle. I mean, Dave Chappelle's show was the funny show. They had like so many controversial sketches, like the nigger family and the black white supremacists and the crackhead. That was hilarious.
I'm thinking, what is I do like old George Carlin, and I think Margaret Cho is cute, but. Yeah, I do like Carlin. I remember used to really enjoying some of Carlin's stuff, and there's certain messages behind that. But recently, I wouldn't. I love Sam Hyde. I've seen Sam Hyde in person. I've seen Tim and Eric. There are some comedians I just have to. There's a lot on my plate. And certainly it's something I would have to get more into, the whole stand-up comedian route. I mean, there's certainly a lot of comedy that's out there today.
Oh yeah, my favorite comedians are like the ones who are like really controversial and mean. I already mentioned Dave Chappelle. I also like Cat Williams. I like Pete Holmes, Greg Giraldo when he was still alive, and God bless him. Eddie Griffin.
Oh yeah, like Lenny Bruce. I do like the historical nature of Lenny Bruce is pretty interesting.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce is okay. I'm trying to think of another comedian I like. I kind of like Dennis Leary a little bit. I also like Louis C.K. And Caesar Zari is pretty good sometimes. I like his TV show, Master of None. it's a show on Netflix. I like, Master of None-Ism is always funny. I like a lot of comedy shows. My favorite comedy shows are South Park.
Yeah, it still has longevity.
Family Guy.
Yeah, they have longevity, those shows.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Married with Children. Shameless.
Yeah, there's a lot of goofy. Once again, when the cartoons are on, I'll.
I also like Archer. You ever watch Archer? That's an underrated show in my opinion.
Archer's interesting. I've seen like 2 episodes of Archer. Yeah, there's a lot going on with Archer. But right now, I have to cut the conversation short because the hour is up. Adventure Kid, is there anything future activity, or should we just stay in touch and make another podcast in the future?
We should definitely stay in touch.
All right, because I have your contacts, but what you should do, you should start doing Blogspot or like Twitter and stuff like that, and get your writing. Or otherwise, I'll talk to you next time. Okay.
All right. God bless.
All right. Take care, Adventure Kid. Nice talking to you. See you then. Bye bye.